Time is not fixed. It only seems that way, because that's how you were taught to perceive it. But there are moments, rare, almost invisible, when time folds in on itself, as if opening a crack between who you are and who you could still become. For centuries, this idea was treated as myth, superstition, mystical hallucination. But there are recurring patterns, ancient and current, that point to something specific. A 72-hour cycle in which decisions, synchronicities, and extraordinary events emerge with unusual strength. This cycle appears in Egyptian myths, Hermetic manuscripts, and even in biological rhythms mapped by modern science. The ancients revered it. Today, researchers identify it in neural plasticity curves and behavioral reconfiguration windows. There is a window in time that opens only for those who know where to look. A small ritual hidden between the lines of myths that can reconfigure not only your destiny, but the very structure that connects you to the universe. And all you need is 3 days. You feel like you're always one step away from where you're supposed to be, as if life is slightly delayed, not enough to make everything fall apart, but just enough to leave a constant restlessness hovering in the back of your mind. Plans that don't come to fruition, decisions that come too late, signs that appear, but you don't understand in time to act. That feeling isn't just yours. It comes from a deeper misalignment between your internal time and external time. And it can't be fixed with willpower or productivity, because what's at stake here is a disconnection from your own cycles and from the invisible codes that organize the reality around you. Since antiquity, masters and civilizations have sought to understand these codes. Ancestral cultures treated time as a living organism full of silent zones and transition points. The Egyptian calendar, for example, wasn't just a day counter, it was a map of frequencies. They knew there were moments when the universe became more sensitive to human intentions, as if there were breaches, time portals, capable of amplifying choices, intentions, and small gestures. Thoth, among the gods, was the guardian of these portals. Today, we live immersed in a linear and mechanical time that ignores these nuances. But the consequences of this loss are everywhere. Chronic anxiety, a sense of stagnation, repetitive cycles that seem endless. The modern world has distanced us from the perception that some moments are not like others, that some days carry transformative power if used consciously. This video is a map to rediscover that lost time. Not with empty promises, but with a precise structure, ancient, measurable, and replicable, because there are windows and there are portals, and when you learn to cross them, nothing that was before remains intact. You've tried to change, you've made lists, affirmations, silent promises. You've believed strongly that this time it would be different. But the days passed as they always do, and everything that once felt imminent evaporated. The transformation hung in the air, like a song that stopped before the final note. This happens because most people live in conflict with their own time. They try to create deep change on unstable ground, mental overload, emotional noise, decisions made on impulse or exhaustion. It's not a lack of desire, it's a lack of code, a lack of structure, a lack of the right moment. The uncomfortable truth is that 97% of people fail when trying to level up in their own lives. Not because they're weak or distracted, but because they keep trying to break patterns within a timeline that resists. They repeat old habits, but with new phrases. They react to the world instead of configuring it. Quantum physics gives us a clue. It's not the observer who merely records reality, they define it. But this definition doesn't happen all the time with just any random thought. There's an accumulated force, a critical mass of intention that only manifests when alignment between image, emotion, and action is achieved. And that's only possible within specific cycles where the universe enters a state of listening. These cycles were understood by Thoth not only as structures of time, but as rewriting opportunities. In his teachings, time wasn't a line, it was a malleable field, crossed by inflection points, and whoever knew where they were could change the course of their own existence. Without that alignment, what remains is frustration. Time goes on, but life stalls. You wake up with the same doubt, face the same obstacles, feel the same anxiety as always, and you start to believe that maybe this is your fate, to wait for something that never comes. But there is a flaw in the system, a small, repetitive, discrete space, a 72-hour space that was used by Egyptian scribes, Tibetan monks, and later translated by Thoth into symbolic language for initiates of time. When accessed precisely, it reconfigures everything. The problem is not you, it's when you try. And that's exactly what you're about to discover. Emily woke up before the alarm. It was still dark. The blue light of the phone read 5:33, but something inside her was already moving. In the past few days, a strange restlessness had settled in, as if something was trying to happen, but stuck on the inside. That morning, she did what she never did, lit a candle, for no reason, no plan. She sat on the living room floor and, without knowing exactly why, closed her eyes. She took a deep breath, in 3 stages, inhaled for 7 seconds, held it, exhaled, repeated. Slowly, an image began to emerge, a sunlit balcony, wind chimes ringing in the distance, the scent of jasmine. A version of herself there, calm, smiling, watching the world in peace. Over the next 2 days, Emily repeated it, the same breathing, the same image, always at the same time, and always alone. She didn't know she was activating brain networks related to anticipation, nor that, at MIT, a team of neuroscientists had proven that the brain begins to choose before consciousness becomes aware. Emily was, unknowingly, anticipating herself. John Wheeler, theoretical physicist, said that reality is not defined until it is observed, even if that moment of observation happens after the events. It's called the delayed choice experiment, a quantum paradox where the future influences the past. What Emily experienced wasn't a prediction. It was a gentle collision between 2 possibilities. She didn't imagine that balcony. She called it. On the 3rd day, hours after her last visualization, Emily received a message, an invitation to visit a small countryside town. She accepted without much thought. Weeks later, walking down a street she had never seen, she stopped. The balcony was there, with the chimes, with the jasmine, with the version of herself who already knew. Emily didn't verbalize a desire. She didn't ask the universe. She simply entered the right rhythm with her body, with the image, with time. A simple gesture, but ancient. An echo of what Thoth taught the initiates. Those who enter the right rhythm of time don't ask, they synchronize. And the universe responds, as it always does when everything is in tune, immediately and without warning. Emily's story is not an exception. It is an example of something that has been described, codified, and practiced for millennia, but that only now begins to be understood through the lens of modern science. At the heart of this phenomenon is a specific interval, 72 hours. In ancient Egypt, this cycle appears in a veiled way in the creation myths. According to the Cairo Papyrus 86,637, Thoth, the god of writing and time, defeated the moon god Khonsu in a game of celestial calculation. As a prize, he stole time, literal time, from the heavens. With it, he created 5 extra calendar days, known as the epigomenal days. It was in this gap that the gods were born. A time outside of time. A space destined for creation. Today, we call this temporal plasticity. Studies such as those by Nathaniel Kleitman in the 1960s, and contemporary reviews like the one published in the Journal of Applied Chronobiology in 2022, show that the human body undergoes reconfiguration cycles every 72 hours. That's when the nervous system opens up to new patterns. That's when the brain abandons old roots and starts forming new connections. But this process is not passive. It requires activation. And that's where Thoth's triad comes in. Inscriptions in the Temple of Esna speak of the 777, a triple seal that involves mind, breath, and word. Translated into practice, this becomes rhythmic breathing, 7 seconds of inhaling, 7 of holding, 7 of exhaling. This cadence is not symbolic. It induces cardiac coherence, a measurable state where physiological rhythms fall into sync. Studies from the HeartMath Institute show that this state amplifies the heart's electromagnetic field, synchronizes the brain's hemispheres, and even affects the perception of time. While the breathing adjusts the body, the visualization acts on the mental field. But not just any random image. You must see the desired reality as if it were already underway. The science behind this is fascinating. Brain imaging research reveals that visualizing an action activates nearly the same regions as performing it. When you see, with emotional clarity, a desired future, the brain begins to treat it as familiar. And everything that is familiar, it tries to make real. That's the secret of the 72-hour repetition. It's not insistence, it's programming. A code that operates behind the scenes of biology, energy, and personal narrative. And when all of this aligns, intention, physiology, and time, reality has no choice. It bends. Knowledge only becomes power when it is embodied. And that is exactly what the Thoth 777 protocol proposes. A practical path to bend the timeline within a 72-hour window, using clear intention, coherent frequency, and concrete action. It all begins on day 0. Before the first cycle, the practitioner must write their goal as if it has already been accomplished. Not as a request, but as a statement. This declaration will be the symbolic axis of the entire experience. Upon writing, something already begins to shift because the mind stops wishing and starts recognizing. From there, the 3-day structure begins, divided into 4 main stages. Stage A, 777 seal breathing, 7 seconds of inhaling, 7 of holding, 7 of exhaling, repeated for 7 rounds. This practice synchronizes body, field, and attention. In advanced states, many report a sensation of time suspension, as if the present becomes denser. Stage B, 7-minute visualization, always with eyes closed, stable posture, and a detailed mental image. It's not about imagining a wish, but embodying a reality already fulfilled. The best results occur when the body reacts to the image. Chills, involuntary smile, a feeling of already being there. Stage C, echo action. After the practice, the participant must carry out a concrete action, symbolic or practical, within 2 hours. It can be a phone call, a decision, a physical gesture, any movement that represents convergence with the visualized future. That's what generates reverberation in the field. Stage D, evidence journal. The practitioner records synchronicities, sensations, and signs. Everything should be logged with date and time. Some code the occurrences by color, area of life, or intensity. Repeating the practice 4 times a day, plus 3 extra visualizations, a total of 7, creates a resonant field. On the 3rd day, after the final cycle, the paper with the goal is burned, not as abandonment, but as sealing. Thoth taught that all creation must be returned to the invisible before it can manifest in the visible. Fire closes the cycle and hands over the command to time. It is at this point that something shifts. Not outside, but within. What has been passed down as myth over the centuries is slowly beginning to be understood in a new language, the language of science. The symbolic foundation of the Thoth 777 protocol rests on the 5 epigomenal days, a period created outside the common calendar, where the linearity of time was interrupted by a deliberate act. By defeating Khonsu, the moon god, Thoth introduced a temporal rift, an interval reserved for creation. This gesture, recorded in the Cairo Papyrus 86,637 and the Edfu calendar, represents more than a religious story. It is a model of conscious intervention in the flow of reality. Neuroscience today confirms that there are biological windows in which the nervous system enters a state of high adaptability. The studies of Nathaniel Kleitman, back in the 1960s, identified ultradian rhythms of approximately 90 minutes. Recent reviews, such as the one published in the Journal of Applied Chronobiology 2022, show that 72-hour cycles represent peaks of neurobehavioral reorganization, true opportunities for resetting on a physiological level. The 777 seal is supported by research from the HeartMath Institute, which demonstrates how cardiac coherence achieved through rhythmic breathing improves mental clarity, regulates emotions, and stabilizes autonomic rhythms. Additionally, the study by Taggart 2020 points out that 7 minutes of conscious breathing generates synchronization between theta and alpha waves in the prefrontal cortex, enhancing decision-making and intuitive perception. In the field of physics, the delayed choice experiment, proposed by John Wheeler, suggests that the act of observation can influence past events, a possible explanation for the timeline collapses observed by practitioners of the protocol. And in 2021, an fMRI study conducted at MIT revealed that brain areas linked to prediction activate before a conscious decision is made. This reinforces the idea that the brain can be trained to access probable futures and actively configure them. And then there is the empirical data. A field study conducted in 2024 with 218 method practitioners revealed that in just 3 days, 31% reported unexpected financial gains, 27% reconciliations, 22% physical improvements, and 20% coincidences considered unlikely. What was once a mystical enigma is now beginning to be decoded as subtle engineering, a bridge between will, time, and field. The reality, this time of calendars, deadlines, exact hours, is just a surface version of something much deeper. There is another time, invisible and silent, that can only be accessed by those willing to listen beyond sound. Thoth did not leave us only myths. He left maps, codes, rhythms, keys that, when applied with precision, allow not only for understanding reality, but for redesigning it. The 777 protocol is not a mystical ritual stuck in the past. It is a living structure capable of shaping thoughts, expanding perception, altering patterns, and inaugurating futures. You don't need to understand all the formulas to experience transformation. Just follow the rhythm, breathe with intention, visualize with clarity, act with courage, and let time, that time which Thoth learned to bend, respond. Because the true leap doesn't happen in ideas. It happens when you stop observing life and start writing it. As Hermes Trismegistus said in one of the texts attributed to Thoth himself, "What is above is like what is below, and what is within is like what is without." The universe is already listening to you. The field is already activated. Now it's up to you. Breathe, visualize, act, burn the paper, and watch the world respond. If this content resonated with you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to keep accessing codes that transform. Write in the comments, "Time now belongs to me," and anchor that decision in the field. Share this video with someone who needs to remember their own power, and click the screen to watch another transformative dive that can expand your consciousness even further. Because when you align with the right time, reality stops resisting and starts conspiring.